I'm hoping that today we can provide a little bit of insight into something that's new, and it goes beyond social media. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about, storytelling, Facebook, is directly related to the shift towards social media in the online world. And what we're going to talk about today is SEO. It's something that's been around for quite a while. It's something that has played huge dividends for a lot of businesses, especially local small businesses who were able to jump onto this before it became sort of mainstream. It's good to see a few familiar names on the list. I saw Adam Nancy on there, so welcome back. We've covered quite a bit, and today we're just going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into online marketing world of Google. What we're going to do at the end of this presentation, I'm going to circulate the slides again. The webinar is being recorded, and the emails that you've been sending me, I have received tons, and I will be trying to follow up with everyone over time. I think I have 3 or 4 left that I have to respond to, so I'll get on that. And again, at the end of this, after we go through the question period, if we don't have time to discuss one of your questions or your concerns in further detail, by all means, feel free to flip me a note and let me know what question or concern you have, and we'll go over that. So let's get started. Basically, today's session is kind of framed up into kind of 5 sections. The first piece that we're going to dive into is really understanding what this thing called SEO is really about. We've talked about a lot of different acronyms. We've talked about ROI. We've talked about SEM. We've talked about all of these different things, but what does that really mean? So we're going to be diving into search engine optimization, talking about what this thing is, how it impacts your business, and why it's important for you to recognize the value that you can see for your business and how it can impact your bottom line if you put the investment there. The next piece, we're going to talk about content. And we have an entire session, which is our next webinar next week, focused around content. What we're going to talk about today is just how content plays an important role in your ability to show up on the first page of Google. That's where everybody wants to be. That's the importance of SEO. And what we're going to talk about is how content plays a crucial role in the ability to show up on the front page. From there, we're going to also dive into this thing called keyword research. So we'll talk about what is it when someone talks about keywords? What does that mean? How do I find keywords? We're going to dive into that a little bit just to make sure that when you leave this session, you do have an understanding of some of the things you should look for in terms of what is it that your consumers are actually searching when they go to Google, and how can you ensure that when they make that search that your page shows up. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about hacking Google, and what hacking Google is all about is really just a few tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that will allow you to kind of get to that front page and achieve your business goals and objectives, which is what it's all about. And then finally, I'll wrap up this entire session by giving kind of a segue into what our next session is all about, content creation, by discussing blogging. Blogging plays a huge role in your ability to show up on the first page of Google. And what we're going to talk about is just how much of a role that plays and how you can use it to truly achieve your business goals and objectives and find success through this thing called SEO. Again, if anybody has any issues with the sound, we highly recommend that you call into the landline. I should be able to, once you get onto the landline, just make sure that you press *6, and we'll be rolling along. So first, let's dive into SEO. Many people misunderstand the goal of SEO, also known as search engine optimization, when compared to this thing called search engine marketing. Applying the whole SEM expectations to SEO can lead to significant frustration and disappointment. And it's something that I've heard time and time again. People say, I want an SEO strategy. But then they ask, okay, but why isn't my thing showing up at the top with the yellow around it? Why isn't it highlighted? There's a big difference between SEO and SEM. The most common request that we hear when we're discussing SEO is we want our website in the top 10 of search engines when people type in cheap hotels in Newfoundland. This goal is often flawed and full of unrealistic expectations because a lot of companies don't really understand what they're paying for. And out there, guys, what you have to be cautious of is that there's a lot of companies who are out there and are willing to take your money in response to this demand, in response to this kind of concept. We'll get you on the front page for the most competitive keyword, and we'll get you there. Don't worry, we can do it all. And you'll chuck this money at them and you won't find the results. And it's because you need to get an understanding of how this thing works. Before you start chucking money towards a company who's going to optimize your site for search, be sure that you have the conversation with them. A lot of these companies, in the rare case, actually fulfill this request, but often, if they do fulfill it, they're taking unethical or inappropriate methods that kind of trick Google. And in doing that, it ultimately will hurt your website in the long term. They'll do these sudden, instant kind of gratifications that will get you on the homepage. So they'll comment on a bunch of blogs with links going back to your site. And that's a black hat listed kind of approach where the links driving back to your site through comments and spam boost you up in the rankings. It's not a great approach because of the fact over time Google will recognize it, they'll catch on, and your page will be depreciated in terms of where it shows up on rankings. And ultimately, the worst thing that can happen is that once Google sees this and they see that you've been taking not so ethical approaches to your search engine marketing, they're going to do this thing called blacklist you. And once you're blacklisted by Google, it is extremely difficult to get out of it. And once you're blacklisted, it means that it's very difficult to find your content on Google, and that's where consumers go. I mean, think about it from your own perspective. When you have a question, when you're trying to figure something out, I know I go to Google. I know a lot of consumers are going to Google. I'll show a stat later on that kind of speaks to how frequently consumers are going to Google to actually do their search. So one other thing that needs to be kind of set up in an understanding, and that is exactly what is the difference between search engine marketing and search engine optimization. So search engine marketing is related to the purchase of AdWords or any other online marketing media such as a banner ad. So if you're looking at my screen, you'll see the things that are highlighted in red. That is not as a result of search engine optimization. These people are paying for ads to have their brand show up in these locations. So sure, a lot of them are going to get clicked, but at the same time, each time it gets clicked, that company is going to be charged. There are tons and tons of ways that you can show up on Google, which we're going to talk about today, that doesn't require that cost per click. When you're taking this approach for search engine marketing, you decide what you want to spend, which words or phrases you want to purchase, and exactly which page you want that ad to actually link back to. So if I'm a hotel and I sell luxury suites, and somebody goes on Google and they search luxury suites Halifax, if I bought that keyword, if I set up a cost per click and I selected the page that I wanted to direct users to, my ad would show up similar to the Halloween ads here. And depending on how much I'm willing to spend, the higher up on the hierarchy of these ads I would show. What we're going to talk about today is not SEM. What we're going to talk about is SEO. And SEO is the concept of search engine optimization. It's related to kind of the examination, if you will, of a website to find any of those barriers that are kind of holding you back from showing up on a search engine, that's holding you back from having a search engine access your website's content. And then identifying kind of the most relevant site content that will allow you to improve significant elements throughout your page so you can index properly. And when I say index properly, I'm talking about making sure that your page shows up when people do a search for you. So when somebody does a search for your hotel, we want to make sure that your content is showing up front and center. More than 50% of search queries have no paid ads at all. So there's this thing called the long tail. And what the long tail is, it's those kind of niche keywords that somebody would type in. So for example, if someone was to type in pet-friendly hotel, that's something that is extremely niche, especially if you add a city into that keyword as well. So if somebody did a Google search for dog-friendly hotel in Dartmouth, if somebody typed in that search, there would be very little competition, And because of that, there wouldn't be anybody buying those online ads. So you have an opportunity to kind of take over that spot and show up at the top of Google. So you need to do that research and try to figure out what those keywords are that you're not competing with ads, but you're ultimately able to tell your story and have people click on your link and come to your website where that sale happens. It's business 101. We want people to make the sale. We want your organizations to generate revenue because that's why you do this thing. So ultimately, you want to optimize yourself so you can come at people and people can find you from a variety of different ways. So the number of searches a day on Google, this came out in 2012. As you can see, it's continuously growing at a rapid rate. In many instances, small and mid-sized business owners aren't 100% sure that SEO is the right solution for them. In fact, there are very few instances where SEO should not be a crucial part, or at least the central part of your online marketing mix. The point of SEO from day one is to increase your sales. It's to increase sales by obtaining those people who are already looking for you. I mean, the difference between running an online ad on Facebook and running an online and optimizing your site is this. On Facebook, you're targeting someone who you think might be interested in your product. On Google, by optimizing your site for keywords like hotel, when somebody types in Hotel Halifax and your website shows up, that's a qualified lead because they're already actively looking for you. And while SEO is a complex, evolving issue, and sure, it does require a bit of work, every organization, every CEO, marketing manager, all of us need to keep in mind the impact of search, the impact of Google. Because if you don't, you'll kind of start to fade off of the map. A saying that a few of my colleagues say is if you don't exist on Google, your business doesn't exist at all. You need to ensure that when somebody does a search for your business, that you're showing up. To ignore SEO in its traditional and new evolving forms will only deny your company an opportunity to succeed in the long term. By recognizing the opportunity with Google, you're understanding that in 2013, this 3 billion searches a day might jump to 5. That search is ever changing and ultimately shifting the way that we communicate. A lot of people still might not really understand what we're talking about here when I talk about SEO. So let me kind of give you a quick framework of how Google identifies what pages do in fact show up on this homepage. What does Google do? What's that process look like? Let me explain it to you. So it's a 3-step process. First, Google does this thing called crawling. And what crawling is that there's these little spiders, and I know it's weird term, but there's these spiders that they call them, and they go out into the web and they look through all of your content. So they scan your text, they scan your images, they scan your code, they read all of these things. And after they go through, they find those keywords that are related to a certain story. And once they've identified them, they do this thing called indexing. And an index is where they put the content together, they recognize how valuable it is, and then from there, they ultimately rank them. And they rank them in comparison to other content on the web. Because this process doesn't just happen to your website, it happens to your competition, it happens to organizations in other industries. It happens to all of them. And once they've done that, once it's kind of indexed a variety of different things, which we'll dive into later, it starts to create that equation to say, okay, this person's a hotel. They've talked about hotels a lot. They say that word a lot. They're getting people linking back to them saying what a great hotel they are. People on TripAdvisor reviewing them as a hotel. This is definitely a great hotel that needs to be at the top of Google. All of these things combined will impact where you show up. And that's really what it's all about. It's about having content that is relevant and making sure that the stuff that you have created and the links coming back to your site are all driving this concept of SEO. When it comes to SEO, for me, content is king. That's really the key. Google's goal is to match each search query, which is an actual search, with the best unique piece of content that it can find. What you need to do is ensure that the content that you're creating is the best content that you can create. A lot of organizations think, oh, I'm a hotel just like everybody else, so I'm just going to cut and paste this copy from another hotel, make a few tweaks, and there we go. That's the wrong way to do it. You want to create your content from the ground up and make the best content possible. Include images, include text, include visuals. All of those things will allow you to create that great user experience. And if it's a great user experience, if it's great content, people will link back to you. People will share it. And ultimately, that'll boost up your rankings in search. Um, Overall, the best content wins in the long term. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if right now you have a website and it has 500 views a month and it's not generating tons and tons of traction. If you can create one blog post that goes extremely viral and people love it, they're sharing it, and people are linking back to it, those keywords that are found within that content are going to start showing up when people do search. And because of that, you'll show up higher than your competition. So another example of why content is so key and how it's still something that not a lot of organizations are recognizing is right here in this example. If you do a search for one of Nike's most popular shoes, the Nike Air Max 95, Nike does not show up for the first three. The first one is an Google AdWord. So this is a shoe company, East Bay, and they're selling shoes. But number 2 and 3, what you're looking at here are from Foot Locker and from nicekicks.com. The reason why they're showing up over Nike.com is because they're providing a better content experience. Their content is more compelling. I mean, nicekicks.com provides you with details on the shoe. It provides a variety of images. It's extremely compelling content, and it's all including these keywords. Nike slacks in this. So it's something that even the big guys are struggling to get a grasp of. So what you need to do is recognize that there is still a window of opportunity for you to kind of create content that's interesting, compelling, and will drive people to your site. What you also need to do is you need to understand who it is you're talking to. Understand who it is that you're trying to connect with. For example, you don't want to create content that nobody's going to actually want to search for. You want to create content that's directly related to your business and will drive people to your site. One issue that's been happening over the last little bit is that a lot of companies have built their websites with Flash. And I don't know if there's any Flash fanatics on the phone or anybody who's a fan of Flash, but I'm not a fan. I'm not sold, and I think Steve Jobs would agree with me, as in the fact that you can't access a lot of Flash on an iPad or on an iPhone. But Flash is very much the epitome of the enemy when it comes to SEO. It is a very difficult time to be optimized from a search perspective when your website is built 100% in Flash. It's extremely difficult. So if you have a Flash website, look at the possibility of shifting to something that is more suitable and will allow you to show up in the search rankings more effectively.
Ross, could you outline to some
Yes.
people there what Flash might be
Yes, for
so they
sure.
understand?
So what
Yeah.
Flash is, definitely. So Flash is a platform that some people have chosen to build their website from, and it's an interactive website. A lot of the functionality that people use in Flash is still used today, but originally, probably about 5 years ago, it was the best way to create that beautiful user experience. So if I was to hover over this screen, for example, birds would follow my mouse. Um, there would also be kind of a animation flying around in the background. There would be sparkles coming from the bottom. All of these different things would happen within Flash, which is an animation program where a lot of people's websites live, versus HTML, which is another way that you can build your website. And then we would get into a big discussion around code. So I don't want to dive in too deep there, because there's a variety of different languages a website can be built in. But Flash is one that definitely has a reverse effect when it comes to SEO. So the next piece that I really think is important is that you want to understand your target audience. Understand what your audience is going to type when they're on Google. If there is any single concept to recognize, it's the concept of keywords. Keywords are what we type in when we are searching for products, for service, or when we're searching for an answer on Google. They're also known as queries. So, for example, when I go to Google and I search, where should I go for supper in New Brunswick? That's me typing in a query. So the keywords that you would want to optimize for would be New Brunswick, where should I eat, things like that. So those are some of the phrases that you would include in your website content so you show up when somebody does that actual search. Companies optimize their web pages for search by assigning those keywords that I was talking about to specific pages. The implications of a business of picking those keywords is huge. The keyword selection is fundamental to the success of your business when it's coming to optimizing your website. It's also very important from PPC, so the search engine marketing perspective. But today, when we're focusing on organic ranking and that search engine optimization, it's important to recognize that you need to really understand what is it that my user is going to search. What are they going to search the most frequently? What will allow me to show up? And speak to the audience that I want to tell my story to. Because keywords are not just SEO. You need to ensure that when you're thinking about this, that you recognize that keywords are not just about SEO. They are at the heart of your organization's communication strategy. I mean, if you're a cheap hotel, if you call yourself a value hotel, if you call yourself luxury, these are the things that consumers search. A lot of consumers will search for a cheap hotel. So if you're a cheap hotel, that's what you want in your keywords. If you are a luxury premium honeymoon suite hotel, those are the keywords that you're going to want in there. If you're selling a product or a service and you want to say authentic Japanese cuisine, those are your keywords. Those are the things that you want to recognize and use as your keywords. Because if I come to your province and I type in sushi and nobody shows up, then there's a lot of businesses that are missing out on a great opportunity. So what you need to do is recognize the core of your business and use those as the keywords. But first, you have to understand who your target market is. So for example, when you search top advertising books, I'm typically one of the top pages that'll show up because on my blog, I'm specifically trying to connect with people who are interested in marketing, in technology, in advertising, in social media. So what I do is I wrote a blog post called 20 Books You Must Read Before Taking a Job in Advertising. What I did was I made sure that the title was top advertising books. And what has happened is whenever somebody searches for top advertising books, they come to my blog. So they start to read it, they get a sense of some of the books I've read, and then from there they start to dive into kind of learning more about my philosophy on social media, on marketing, technology, communications, and ultimately that can lead to new business and a sale. So what you need to do is think about your target audience. Who is it that you're speaking to? Are the people who would come to your site the people who would look for a cheap hotel? What is it that they would want to find? Once you've done that, you need to ask yourself 4 key questions. How realistic? How realistic is it that these people are actually going to do this search? How relevant is it to your business? Second, will the target customers actually search this? I see a lot of businesses who optimize who optimize their website with their brand name. So if your website is, I don't know, AB Smokehouse, you don't want every single page to be optimized for AB Smokehouse. You want it to be optimized for Southern cuisine barbecue in Halifax. You want to optimize it for the words that your customers are actually going to look for. You're going to want to check in the words like restaurant. You're going to want to talk about things like the top restaurants, things of that nature, things that you know a consumer will actually search for. Is there enough volume for that query? Do enough people actually search for that? Is there too much competition? Who are they? Who are you competing with? All of these questions are things that you want to ask yourself before you start diving into creating these keywords for your business. A great way to build this keyword is through Google's traffic estimator. So if you go to Google, this is funny, if you go to Google and you Google Traffic Estimator, tongue twister, you'll be able to find this tool. And what this tool will allow you to do is it will allow you to plug in a few keywords, and it will give you kind of an idea around how often are people searching for these keywords that are related to your business. How often are people searching for Japanese cuisine? How often are people searching for bed and breakfast in PEI? How often are they looking for these things? Once you've done this, you can identify and kind of get a better understanding of what content you want to put out there, and most importantly, put on your website. So to take it back again, content is king, but Google needs to be able to find you. Remember this process. You need to make sure that Google can actually know that you exist. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm kind of against Flash, because it's very difficult for Google to scan a Flash website. So what you need to do is recognize what things can you do to make your site easy to scan, easy to crawl, and ultimately get you on that first page. So here are a few best practices that I always think of as being great approaches. So the first one, link to content from high-ranking sites. So if you are a tourism operator, link to the content on your DMO's page. By linking to that content, their page is always getting crawled by the bots, and ultimately Google will see this link back from you and check out what it is that you provide. How important is your website? So they'll go and check out to see what you're all about, and ultimately link you to a large, high-ranking site, which is awesome. From there, you want to have a mix of popular and recent content in your content plan. So what you'll find on Google now is there's this thing called real-time kind of search. So when there was I don't know, when Romney launched that video, when yesterday they scanned, somebody video recorded him saying a few things that didn't make a lot of sense. Somebody videotaped it. Anybody who wrote a blog post about that, their content was showing up at the top of Google whenever somebody typed in Mitt Romney. And because of that, they were able to generate tons and tons of traffic. This is a great approach if there's something happening that is topical, that is top of mind, and you're writing a blog. So if something's going on in your province, in your industry, and you write that content, if somebody does a search which tons of people should be already doing if it's something that's top of mind, your page, your content will show up at the top of Google, which is great because it'll drive that instantaneous small spark of traffic to your website. Third, you want to develop content worth sharing. Social media plays a huge role in SEO. We'll dive into that a little bit later on, but you want to make sure that you're still creating compelling, interesting content. I know a lot of people will create their SEO strategies and they'll stuff tons and tons of keywords into every paragraph that they write. That's the wrong way to do it. What you want to do is you want to tell your story in a compelling, interesting way. And if the keywords fit, if the keywords are inside of that content, that's icing on the cake. Because at the end of the day, if the content sucks, no one's sharing it. And if no one's sharing it, Google's not going to care that you wrote it. So you want to make sure that the content that you're creating is compelling and interesting. From there, you also want to leverage headers, footers, and your sidebars. Put content as many places as you can on your website. And you want to make sure that it's in that text format. A lot of people, when they create their websites, they use images everywhere. And the images are what you have to click on to get to the next page. What they've done in doing this is that they've missed out on a huge opportunity because Google can't scan an image for the actual text. You can add in code behind the images so that there's text associated with it, but it won't have the same relevance if you actually just wrote out that word. So for your website, if you are a restaurant and it says Halifax restaurant, fine dining, if that's all in one image, Google can't scan that. So you may as well just delete the image and type it out and find a beautiful font that's web safe and use that as your text. From the next piece, you also want to create a Google sitemap. And what a sitemap does is it shows kind of all of the different pages in your site. And once Google finds that, it gives them an ability to kind of better scan and understand where it is they need to crawl and what pages they can index. An example from Ontario is the Drake Hotel. So the Drake Hotel does a great job at making their content very findable. If you look at this screen, you can see that there's text everywhere. The one thing that I would say that they don't do right is that they have this piece where it says their actual name as an image. At the same time, it's not a huge problem because they probably have the text associated with it on the backlog. But what they should do is just have a nice, beautiful font that says Drake blog up here. What you can see over on the right-hand side is they have hotel and travel. So they're blogging about hotels, they're blogging about travel, they're blogging about food and drink, they're blogging about things that somebody who's going to Toronto and needs somewhere to stay is going to be interested in. On their homepage, they have 8 different blocks of nothing but text. And because of that, Google's scanning this content and they're indexing on what this page is all about. What they've also done that is very smart is they've integrated it with Twitter. And what Twitter does when integrated to your website is it makes sure that the content that is happening on your homepage is always new. Because every time that this person sends out a tweet, this content is going to change. And once that content changes, Google has to scan it again to make sure that, hey, what's going on this site now, and ultimately gives you an opportunity to boost your ranking. So be findable. That would be my second tip. Another interesting thing, one of our, another company from Toronto, also local in Halifax, Cambridge Suites. Cambridge Suites does a great job in making sure they have a strong URL. So what's in a URL? Well, in the SEO world, everything. You need to have a keyword-rich domain name and create a sound information architecture around it. You want to make sure that your domain is directly related to the content that someone would find there. Ideally, we think that the keywords that you have identified as being the most important for that page need to be located in this URL that you've established. A lot of people are looking for their new quirky domain names that they can find, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your domain has your keywords. So with the Cambridge Suites, they created a blog post called Street Eats, your guide to Toronto's food trucks. So if somebody's in Toronto or going to Toronto and they just do a search for food trucks, they're going to come to the Cambridge Suites page. And the reason why it's optimized for search is because right here in the URL, it says specifically Toronto's food trucks. So it's directly tied back to one another. Here's a horrible example. So you can see TechCrunch, they've got pitch deck in their URL. That's awesome. But when you look down at this company here, SFGate, CGI bin article.cgi file equals, it's a bunch of gibberish. That is going to have a horrible impact on SEO. You want to delete all of this clutter. You want to get rid of all of this stuff that doesn't impact your search, and you want to just explain what it is that somebody's reading. And from there, you want to fix your page names. You want to make sure that the content that you're providing is cohesive from the title to the header to the URL. You want to have a cohesive SEO approach. So what do I mean by that? If you look at this company here, their title for this page is the Casablanca Hotel New York official site, best luxury boutique hotel, Times Square. So at first glance, you think, oh, it's not bad. And it isn't. It's not horrible. I've seen much worse. But there's a few things here that bug me. Okay, so the first one is official site. No one in their right mind is going to go to Google and say, I need to search for an official site. That's just not the way consumers work. So remove that, because if somebody comes there, they're not going to notice it. It's just there. You don't need to say it's an official site. What else would it be? Best luxury boutique hotel, Times Square. This content is the most important piece in this entire thing. You want to move that to the front, because when it comes to the Casablanca Hotel in New York, there's probably no one else. So over time, there's going to be links coming back to this all about the Casablanca Hotel, and there's going to be no problems with that. So what you can do is recognize that this piece here, where it says best luxury boutique hotel, needs to be at the front. The Casablanca Hotel New York doesn't need to be at the front, because people are going to be linking back, they're going to be driving to this page, and ultimately you'll be able to find success from that on its own. The fact that the best luxury boutique hotel, Times Square, is at the end is going to do a disservice for the SEO purposes. If it's at the front, more people are going to look for best luxury boutique hotels on Google. They're less likely to do a search for the Casablanca Hotel, New York. So what you need to do is recognize how we can move this content to the front, because this is something that's just directly inherently built within your business. So in doing that, you need to kind of look at it in three approaches. The title of your page, the URL, and the header. You want to make sure that the content that you've established is a cohesive SEO approach. Remember, first and foremost, however, what your keyword mix is all about. What is the keyword that you're trying to drive people to? What is it that people are going to search for? And short and crisp are better than long and descriptive, guys. You want to create headers that are short, have that keyword, and there's directly associated with what it is you offer as a business. So another example is Huffington Post. So they do a great job at developing this cohesive SEO approach. You look at the title, it says Ontario Mafia, McGuinty wants evidence after claim of from former Quebec Mountie. Then you look here into their URL, it says Ontario Mafia, Quebec corruption. Perfect, it's all tying back to each other. And then third, they have the actual header of the content. Ontario Mafia, boom. So it's a triple threat. They're hitting their keywords in each piece here. So if somebody goes to Google and they type in Ontario Mafia, they're definitely showing up because it's the first words right here, and right here. So you definitely want to recognize that when you're building out your site and ensuring that the SEO is fluid from top to bottom. So the next piece, which 10 years ago was extremely important, in today's world has decreased in its importance, is metadata. So one concern that a lot of people have is, how do I update that little bit of text that shows up below my URL? When it comes to metadata, the most important thing is that it's inspiring enough to be clickable. This content, while it has a small role in where you show up in Google search, it doesn't play as big of a role as it did 5 or 10 years ago. Google has kind of moved it out of the equation to be more of a subtitle for you, where you have to just tell that compelling story to make it worth clicking this ad. So if I do a search for cheap hotels in Montreal, as soon as I see, if you are looking for a cheap hotel in Montreal, look no further. Okay, I'm not going to look any further. I'm going to click your link. That's where you do the sale. That's where you're able to convince me that I want to click your link. So use this section to not only still have some of your keywords, but most importantly, tell the story that will inspire someone to actually click that content that you've created. And if you can do that, you'll find great success. So definitely consider it. So before I dive a little bit more into content, I want to dive into this fact. And it's a fact that I've shared quite a few times with a lot of people. And it's one that truly blows my mind in terms of why it's so important to blog. If I ever had a recommendation for a business, it's always to just blog. Because of this fact right here. I mean, 55% more web traffic if your company blogs is a no-brainer to me. If you have an opportunity to get more traffic, 55% more traffic than your competition because they haven't jumped on this bandwagon, that is a huge opportunity. From there, it even gets better. There's more icing on the cake. You will also get 70% more leads. So for me, if you're able to close the deal, if your website is telling that compelling story, that's 70% more business than your competitors. That's 70% more business possibly, if you're not doing this right now, than you could right now, that you could increase your revenue by. So recognize this and see that there's a huge opportunity in blogging. And it's not something that's just short term. In the short term, it gives you something to talk about on your networks. But in the long term, once you write that blog post, it's there forever. Blog post I wrote about advertising books, I wrote a year ago, and I still am getting tons and tons of traffic on that site. It's one of my most popular posts. People come to that on a regular basis because I blogged about it, and over time, it just increased in ranking. So blogging really does equal content, and I think that blogging is something that every organization needs to do, or at least consider doing when they're looking to jump into this social media space. So when we talk about blogging, what channels out there provide the best service? I'll dive back to this slide in a second, but first, let's talk about that a bit. So there's WordPress. WordPress, this is a guy who was at the Google conference. He actually specifically said that WordPress is a fantastic piece of software. and makes your site easily crawlable by search engines, solves some 80 to 90% of mechanics of SEO, and is the first big step you can take towards creating a popular online business. This can also speak towards local small businesses. WordPress is a great piece of software if you are looking to get into blogging or even have a website. WordPress is a content management system. So this is where you actually put your content, where your content would live, and where you write it. And I strongly recommend checking out WordPress along with these three other places. A lot of people will simply say, use WordPress. That's the only content management system anyone should ever use. But these are also some great content management systems for anyone who are looking to actually have a site that is optimized for Google. They include Drupal, Joomla, and Squarespace. These are great platforms for anyone who are looking to kind of take these tactics that we discussed and integrate them with their site. A few sites that I wouldn't recommend because they're not that great for SEO. Blogger is one of them. Blogger, while it's owned by Google, for some reason, Google doesn't give itself too much love. They don't scan their own website content that much to kind of give their bloggers a lot of attention in the Google search. Typepad is another one. LiveJournal and Tumblr. Tumblr is great if you're targeting young people and you want to kind of have that ability to go viral, but it's not that great for search versus the other four content management systems that we talked about before. So when you do get into blogging, what are some things that you should keep in mind? So first of all, in my opinion, I love WordPress. I think WordPress is great for SEO. I found nothing but success from it. But what you want to do is you want to install this thing called the all-in-one SEO pack. And what the all-in-one SEO pack does is it allows you to very easily update the metadata, to update the keywords, to change the title of your page, and start to create that cohesive brand story that you're trying to tell through your SEO. So it's definitely a channel that it's definitely a plugin that I strongly recommend installing, and it's very easy to use. Whenever you create a page, you'll see this little box that you can see on my frame now at the bottom of the box, at the bottom of your post. And at the end of that, once you scroll down to this, you can start to fill in what is it that I want to show up at the top of my page. What content do I want to show up on Google? What should show up when somebody does that search? What's that compelling piece of information that is going to inspire someone to click? What keywords do I want to show up when somebody does a search on Google? What keywords am I targeting? These are the kind of things that you want to show up. And the way to do it, if you're using WordPress, is by installing this plugin. It's great. You want to ensure that visibility and Ping-O-Matic are on. What these things are, visibility, it's exactly what it says. It means that you want to make sure that your site can actually be tracked by Google. Ping-O-Matic is something that's a little interesting and it's in nerd speak, but basically it means somebody who is linking back to you and you'll get a notification. Not all link backs to your website are the same. So somebody might link back to you who has tons of traffic to their site, who are doing a great job with their own SEO. And by linking back to you, it's great for your business to show up in the rankings if they're linking back to you with relevant keywords. So you'll get a notification saying so-and-so just linked back to your content, and you can approve it or you can decline it. You will always want to approve that link back from somebody who has hundreds of thousands of followers. So this is something that you also want to consider. What you're also able to do when you're using WordPress is edit those URLs. And this is something that's very important because it's something that is often seen as a second thought. Edit your URLs to have those keywords in them. You don't want to have a blog or a page that is called page number 433. You want to have a blog that describes exactly, a URL, sorry, that explains exactly what it is that this content has. And finally, social media functions are important. A lot of people think that SEO and social media are kind of like completely different things. They're not. It's yin and yang. They work extremely well together. What you've kind of found with the new integration of Google Plus is that Google originally was only using Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest to kind of track how important is this content. Now that they've chucked Google Plus in the mix, social is becoming extremely important for your search rankings. So what I always recommend is if you're going to start a blog, you want to install a plugin that will allow people to share your content on Twitter, on Facebook, And most importantly, and I know it's weird to say most importantly for Google Plus, but most importantly, Google Plus. The reason is because Google places a significant amount of emphasis on someone who uses Google Plus. So if somebody's website has the Google Plus button and I press it, if any of my friends do a search for those keywords that were in that content, that post is going to show up higher than anyone else. What you can see on this is that right here where it says Madeline NG, kind of press the Google Plus this on google.com. The reason why it shows up here is because the person who took this screenshot is friends with Madeline. So for example, if I go to your hotel and I stay there for a night and you have a Google Plus button, and I press that Google Plus button, and organically, you don't necessarily right now are showing up on the home feed. Um, you do a search for hotels in New Brunswick, you don't show up. But you just so happen to install this Google Plus button, and one of your customers came, they had a great time, and they pressed it. By them doing that, if any of their friends who are logged into their Gmail account does a search for New Brunswick hotels, because they press that button, you're more likely to show up here versus your competitors. So it gives you an advantage over some people who have already been in the SEO world for quite some time. So search engine marketing and all of that stuff is great, but I definitely think that social integrated with SEO can provide you with great results. So how does all of this really work? Well, this is how it kind of happens. So if you have great content, if your website is SEO friendly and you make sure that it's findable, some of the stuff we talked about today, you ensure that there's social sharing involved. So you make sure that there's those actual ability to share things on Facebook, on Twitter, on Pinterest. If you make sure that your content can be shareable, and then you add that with the concept of link building. And we didn't focus too much on link building, so let me speak to that shortly. But what link building really is all about is just about getting people to link back to your site. So you want people to link back to you as much as possible. Now, don't go out and start linking back to yourself in comments and all of that stuff. That's called spam. What you want to do is you want to connect with some of your partners maybe, or connect with the DMO and ask them to do something, whether it's write a blog post about you, have a link back to you on the homepage, whatever that may be. If you can start to get these authority channels to link back to you, it's great for search. What you want to make sure, however, is that they're not just linking back to you using keywords that are generic. You want them to use the keywords when they link back to you that are related to your business. So if you're a hotel and your name is AB Mountain Hotels, you don't want them to link back to you using that as the keyword. You want them to link back to you as luxury hotels. And then that is something that people will search. And ultimately, by doing that, you're going to get all of these things that you see on the second row. The combination of link building, social sharing, making an SEO friendly site, and great content will ultimately just lead to higher rankings, more readers, more followers, and ultimately more influence. And that's the cycle of this thing called inbound marketing, which is doing work that allows people to come to you. So if you can do that, if you can set up this kind of framework for your business, it will really work for you. I can guarantee you, you'll generate results and you'll find great success from it. Before you get social and link building right, you have to get the keywords and the accessibility of your content right. You need to make sure that the keywords you're targeting are the right keywords. They're ones that people are actually searching for. And once you've done that, I want you to go back to kind of some of those things that we talked about and ensure that they're built into your plan. So you want to make sure that those keywords are showing up in your pages. You want to make sure that the content that you're creating is rich with these keywords, and make sure that they're keywords that people are actually searching for. From there, you want to make sure that you have those sitemaps in place. You have a URL that doesn't have a bunch of numbers, that actually tells that story. You want to ensure that it's cohesive from top to bottom. And once you've done that, you can start to dive into social. You can start looking at how can I add in social media plugins? How can I start creating things that are going to be worth downloading or worth scanning and sending to my friends? What kind of things can I do to ultimately lead to the success of my business through social, through link building, through keyword research, and then ultimately developing that quality content? The last thing that you want to do is to take kind of what we've talked about today and simply start keyword stuffing your content. It's still extremely important to tell a compelling story. That's what it is. It's all about telling a compelling story. And if your story is worth telling, if your story is worth hearing, you'll find success through SEO. Because no matter how complex it may get or how complex it may seem, when we're talking about on-site keywords, link building, updating your titles, all of that stuff, no matter how complex that may seem, it's still all about compelling storytelling. If you can tell a compelling story, people will find your content, they'll share it, and ultimately they'll buy from you. And that's what it's a great lead into kind of our next session, which is really all about content creation. Once we get into content creation, we'll dive into our final session next Wednesday, which will be focused on TripAdvisor. From here, we'll be able to kind of get a true understanding of all of the opportunities that exist from a social to a digital marketing perspective, which is what we really highlighted today. So thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions or any concerns, by all means, shoot them off in the question box. Happy to have a discussion with you guys now.
Ross, again, an awful lot of stuff there. Very important, though. Content is king, and anybody in the industry will say that right from the beginning. And I think this is where the work begins for a lot of operators. Now, where do I get the time to generate that content, keep it all fresh? But I guess there's other ways to do that, and we'll explore them in the next session. Bruce and Nancy, I think, both had some questions stemming out of last session, Ross, so maybe you could start with them.
Okay. So where's the question? Bruce. Ross, I still can't see any insights on my Facebook page, no overview, likes, people talking about, etc. I may have turned something off in my settings. I have about 240 likes to the page. So yes, Bruce, and I did see your email, but I will quickly just speak to kind of what's going on there. At the same time, I'm not 100% sure what is going on there because typically on Facebook, it's very straightforward in terms of where your insight should be. So if your page doesn't look like this, I'm cautious that maybe you set up a profile and you don't have a page. So when you have your page, there should be a place up here where it says show. The next step is to press that, and then your insights should be here. If they're not showing up, if this doesn't even exist, then I think what you've done is you've set up your business page as a profile, and that doesn't exist up here. So what you need to do is you need to take this page and turn it into a profile, and go from there. Notifications like crazy, as you know. Birthdays are the worst days for Facebook. You can see the admin area. Okay, so if you can see the admin area, then you should be able to press show, and then this would show here. If it doesn't, then there's something wrong with Facebook or possibly your browser. So I'm going to jump over to Nancy's question. I had a question last time regarding Hootsuite's new auto scheduling, but there were some issues that day. When I hit the auto schedule, does it then go ahead and start sending without letting you know when? This is not, whoa, the question got deleted. Okay, there it is. Without letting you know when, this is not the regular schedule, but the new feature. Wondering if there's anything I need to do after I hit auto schedule. No, there's nothing you need to do. As soon as you press auto schedule, then you're pretty much submitting to the fact that you want Hootsuite to send it out whenever they can. You can actually see when they've auto scheduled the content for. Once you've done that, once you've gone, you have to create a column that says, I'll create one now. So you have to create a stream. So you click this where it says create a stream from Twitter, and then you're basically going to go here and then schedule tweets. Once you've developed a stream that says scheduled tweets, they'll all show up with your content. I have a question from Kara. Ross, I didn't hear an answer Monday to a question a few of us had due to audio. If you could answer it afterwards, that would be wonderful. On the Facebook page I am updating, there's no search field or top bar. Why is that? How can I change that? There's no search field or top bar. Let's see. So I'm not 100% sure if this is the bar that you're talking about right here, then I think it might be, again, a browser issue, because Facebook has that everywhere you go. No matter where you are on Facebook, whether it's on the homepage, whether it's in a page itself, it always shows up. So I'm not sure why that wouldn't be there. You might need to update your browser, but it should be there no matter where you go on Facebook. If that's not what you're talking about, then if you could clarify in the questions, that would be great. It is? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be, I'd say update your browser maybe. I'm not sure what browser you're using. I always say check out Chrome, or possibly Firefox. Question from Cindy. Unfortunately, Google optimizes my search results. Good thing, but how can I tell my SEO is working when I can't see what others do? Fortunately, Google optimizes my search results. I'm not 100% sure what you mean that Google optimizes your search results. The best way to see if your SEO is working is do a search for your keywords that you want your page to show up for. If you do a search for a keyword and your page doesn't show up, then that's problem number one. Google customizes search results based on my pattern. I'm not 100% sure what you mean. If you want to send me a note offline, I'd be happy to speak to it further. I'm not stored in cookie or cache. Yeah, if you want to just give me a shout offline, I'm happy to chat about it. I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe we can add that to the question period next time, just so everybody else will get the answer to it once we resolve it.
For sure. How can she know what Ontario is seeing? It's a good question. I will look into that. I'm not 100% sure what the best approach would be. I typically like to use Google Analytics, or you can take that link that Jamie sent if you are at work. Hopefully it's safe for work, and go from there.
Oh, Russ, you're pretty safe, I will say that. There's a comment there from New Brunswick on the search bar thing, if you want to review that, Ross.
Karen. Okay, I see another question from Joan. Can you put a like button on your website? Yes, you can. So to put a like button on your website, the best approach is you go to Facebook. Actually, go to Google. There's a place. So if you type in Facebook like button, it'll take you to this channel. And what you're able to do is create that URL code directly from this. So you select what your Facebook page is. Let's say it's any of these. Don't know what that is. Facebook.com/Nike. From there, I'm able to kind of develop a code button for Nike. Even though I don't own Nike, I'm able to create a page that actually would act as a like button. So I'm able to select the style layout, the box count, whatever I want it to look like. And then once I'm done kind of figuring out what I want it to be, so if I want it to be dark, because my site's dark, if I want the font to be Tahoma, all of those things I can figure out here. Once I've done that, I press Get Code. Google will give me this code, and all I have to do is place it in a plugin, or use this and place it into the script of my website itself. So you would just do a quick Google search, Facebook like button. It'll bring you to this. Scroll down, type in the URL of your Facebook page, and all of this will need to be determined based off of your preferences. Nice. What is the connection between driving Facebook traffic and SEO? Is there any ways to ensure they are connecting? The key to making them connect is just driving them to similar content. There's no real direct correlation between the two. If you're talking about online ad traffic, then the difference is that they're not really connected. But if you're talking about Facebook from a link sharing perspective, if somebody finds your content and they think it's interesting and they start sharing it on Facebook and they're sharing it over and over again, what you'll find is that your ranking will go up simply because Google places weight on how shareable your content is. So if people are sharing your content, Google will typically believe the fact that, okay, other people like this, so we're going to trust that it's actually good content.
Seems we've cleared the decks, Ross. Are there any more questions? Well, hearing that there's not, again, thanks very much for attending the webinar today. On behalf of Beth, Lindsay, Jamie, and myself, we're so very pleased that these are going so well. Don't forget that TourismTechnology.com does offer the one-on-one mentoring sessions. If you want to dig a little deeper into your online presence, we do want to put you in charge of your technology plan. So get in touch with us and we can tell you more about that. Also, you will receive the survey email today. Just take a few moments and fill it out because we do want to get better at this. If you like the webinar, tell a friend. We've got a couple of good topics coming up now. Content creation, we all know how important that is. And of course, the one that everybody loves, TripAdvisor. If you don't like what we're doing, let us know because maybe we can make some changes and make it better for everybody. So the next webinar is Monday, September 24th, and it is on content creation. And on behalf of our sponsors, the 4 provincial governments, the 4 tourism industry associations, Tourism Atlantic and COA, thanks very much for your continued support. Thanks everyone, have a great week.
Thanks everyone, take care.